The Mayor's Chaplain, the Reverend Ian Baker, will now say prayers.
Good evening, everyone. Let's pray. The Bible tells us this. It says, I urge then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercession and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and for all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. So as that's what the Bible urges us to pray, let us pray that. Father God, thank you that you are a God who loves to hear us pray and loves to answer prayer. You invite us to pray for kings and queens. So we do pray for our Queen. We thank you for her service of our nation, for 70 years being our sovereign and our guide. Thank you for her faith in you that feeds and sustains her. Please, would you keep her strong and keep her as your loyal servant. Father, you invite us to pray for all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives. Well, Father, we know from the news that this is a time of turmoil in Westminster, but we thank you, Father, for our democracy, and we pray for the wisdom for every member of Parliament in all the decisions they make and all the votes they cast. We pray for the government, that it may serve you and serve the people of this nation, and so lead us that we can live peacefully as a nation and peacefully as far as we are able with other nations. Father, you invite us to pray for peace, but we do so knowing there is war in Ukraine and conflict in many other places around the world. So we pray for leaders around the world to not serve themselves or agendas that benefit the few. We pray that you would raise up leaders who want to serve their people and want to work for the best of all and want to work for peace. Father, you invite us to pray for all those in authority. So we pray for this council meeting tonight. We pray for our mayor as she chairs the meeting, for the council leaders, the council members, and all the council staff. That as you urge us to pray, we pray that everyone would work together for the common good and for the people of Newcastle Borough. We pray our prayers in Jesus' name and pray in the prayer that he taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Right, so that was a good start. The mic didn't work. Good evening and welcome, members. Welcome to those members of the public and press who have joined us this evening by YouTube, where we are hosting a live stream of our proceedings this evening.
We'll wait until 7 o'clock.
Oh.
So just want to take a seat and we'll.
Right, okay, we're going to wait. Yeah, if you can just take a seat. Oh, right. With it saying it had started, with it saying it had started, the YouTube, I thought, oh, we'll put right. Yeah. Good evening and welcome to the meeting. Welcome to those members of the public and press who have joined us this evening by YouTube, where we are hosting a live stream of our proceedings this evening. Members, please remove your jackets if you need to. Good evening, members. Before we begin, I need to go over the usual housekeeping rules. There are no fire drills planned for this evening. So if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit and assemble in the Queen's Gardens at the front of the building. Please do not re-enter the building until you're advised to do so. I would like to remind members of protocols around speaking during this meeting. No member should speak until invited to do so by myself. If you wish to speak, please could I ask you to raise your hand high until you have been acknowledged. Please could all members in the room use their microphones whenever they speak, as without them, anyone watching online will not be able to hear you. To use the microphones, please press the button at the front and centre when invited to speak and wait a moment for the light on your microphone to come on. Please remember to turn off your microphone once you have finished. Please could I ask at the end of the meeting to make sure that you take all your belongings and waste with you. Thank you. We will now commence the business for this evening. Agenda item number 1, apologies. So I have received apologies from councillors Jill and Paul Waring, Paul Northcote and Dave Jones. Are there any other apologies, please? Mr. Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I record apologies for Councillor Phil Rees and Councillor Sue Moffat, please?
Yeah. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. The next agenda item is item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest for any members or officers in relation to any of the items of business on the agenda? No? Okay. Agenda item number 3, minutes of the last meeting. Agenda item 3, members, is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of May 2022. You will find these minutes on pages 5 to 9 of your agenda. Can the meeting's minutes please be agreed? Thank you. Seconded? Thank you. Agreed. Okay. Agenda item number 4, Mayor's announcements. I have 3 announcements. I just want to say on the 27th of July, the long-awaited Kidsgrove Sports Centre will be open for business, which I'm sure you'll all be very pleased to hear. And then on August the 7th, from midday, I will be holding a fundraiser at the Old Hall Country House in Madeley. Tickets will be available shortly, and it's going to be a very busy afternoon and hopefully will raise lots of money for my charity. There will be stalls, raffles, afternoon tea, military vehicles, and lots more things to name but a few. And then on Saturday, the 12th of November, I will be holding 1940s evening at Kidsgrove Town Hall, where tickets will be available shortly. So these are dates that I'd like you to keep in your diary. And if you can come, please come along and support the charities. Thank you. So agenda item number 5 is to receive an update on issues associated with Wally's Quarry. Councillor Simon Tagg will introduce this item. Councillor Tagg, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everybody. The issues to do with Wally's Quarry and the gas odours have been one of the biggest issues in the last couple of years that the council has had to face. And in my time on the council, one of the biggest issues. And a lot of our population are suffering still from this. And in some cases, it does get better, but then it gets worse again. And we seem to be at one of those stages at the moment. So as a council, we've made a number of decisions over the past couple of years that have led to actions that are trying to hold the operator to account through abatement notices, and also to try to force the EA to take a more rigorous regulatory approach as well. And through that, we've had regular reports back to the Cabinet, and also through the Leader Statement and other reports through to Council. But we thought this evening, because of a large amount of new members we've got on the Council, who will know a lot about the problems, but might not know so much about the Council's actions, I've asked the Chief Executive to prepare a presentation, which we will now deliver, and then there'll be time at the end for some questions as well on the subject matter. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. So I'll just hand over to the Chief Executive, Martin Hamilton.
2 seconds while I share my screen. And there we go. Okay. I'll break with convention and stand for this because it's always just that little bit easier when you're doing a long presentation to do that. First of all, thank you for your time this evening on your council agenda to do this. As the leader said, we've got a lot of new members elected in May, and I think it's really important that we make sure that everybody's has the same level of briefing on this particular issue, which has really had quite a significant impact, a major impact on the community, but also because of the scale of the work that we've been doing on it, actually has had quite an impact on the organisation as a whole in terms of responding to the particular problems. So what I'm going to run through with you this evening is a presentation that will give you an overview of a very brief history of some of the issues, an overview of the different partners that are involved, but I will particularly major on the work that we're doing as an organisation and the work that we're doing around the statutory nuisance, but also inevitably we'll talk quite a bit about what the Environment Agency are doing as the lead regulators for the site. So the first thing that I'm going to cover off is really who the key players are in this, and because as I go through the presentation, I will be using various abbreviations, which I will try not to, but it kind of comes with the territory to some extent. So the actual landfill site used to be operated by Red Industries. It's now operated by a company called Wally's Quarry Limited, which is actually part of the Red Industries group of companies. So you will sometimes see in our reports we refer to WQL, that's what Wally's Quarry Limited. The Environment Agency for landfill sites such as this are the lead regulator. They have issued a permit for the site to operate, and all of their enforcement work is based on making sure that the operation is compliant with that permit. So they have the lead regulator role. For ourselves, we have a particular role around statutory nuisance, which I will talk about in some detail in the presentation. The County Council is actually the planning authority for this. Because it's a waste site, the County Council is the planning authority. And the planning history of this goes back some time and wasn't a planning consent that was, if you like, willingly granted by the County Council or the Borough Council. It was actually a planning consent granted following an appeal process. One of the other key players in this is the UKHSA. Now, some of you may be more familiar with them as PHE. We heard a lot about PHE during the pandemic, Public Health England. So the UK Health Security Agency, I have to say, have been excellent partners to all of us through this time, providing their scientific expertise, providing information about health risks, etc., to this particular problem. But when we talk about the stakeholders here, there's, by far the biggest group of stakeholders is the residents of Newcastle-under-Lyme, who have for a number of years suffered from the odours that come off the site, and actually are playing their own very important role in addressing this by constantly reporting the issues to ourselves and the Environment Agency, to lobbying various organisations to do more. So they're very much both at the business end of this in terms of suffering from the impacts, but also a major stakeholder in actually resolving the issues through the information and the challenge that they provide back to us. So in terms of some context and scale, as I've mentioned, these issues of odours from the quarry have gone on for a number of years, and there used to be a seasonal trend to them. In colder weather, you would get much more prevalence of odours, and in warmer weather, the gases coming off the site are actually able to disperse much more quickly. So there used to be a seasonality to it. There was a big escalation in odours in the winter of 2019-20. And then in 2021, the council has received actually 22,000 complaints about this particular, about odours off the site. The Environment Agency likewise have received 43,000 complaints. They refer to them as reports about odours off the site during 2021. Now, there will be a degree of duplication both within those numbers and between those numbers. So we will get folk who will report to us and to the Environment Agency, and we will get folk who quite legitimately on a bad day report to us and the Environment Agency more than once. So if they've got a problem first thing in the morning and a problem in the afternoon, quite reasonably, they're reporting that twice. And that has helped us build up this picture as to what's going on, which is, I think, one of the reasons that I reference the community as being significant players in this. Now, you will hear me talk throughout the presentation about hydrogen sulfide, or H2S, and that is a gas within landfill gas that we're actually able to trace relatively easily, and has got defined characteristics around the level at which it becomes offensive, the level at which it becomes problematic to health. But actually the odour coming off the site is actually due to elevated landfill gas, of which hydrogen sulfide is but one element. But for shorthand, as I go through this, I will talk about hydrogen sulfide. One of the things that you'll have seen probably on social media and the press is concerns about the health impacts of this. And there are 4 air quality monitoring stations that we regularly report on. The EA provide them, ourselves and the County Council also part fund them. And on our regular reports to Cabinet capture the report on the information that's coming off these sites. And they provide us really useful information, both about the level of hydrogen sulfide and more particularly the percentage of time that they're over one of these 2 thresholds. So the World Health Organization identifies 2 particular threshold levels of interest to us here. The first is what we refer to as the annoyance threshold. So this is the level at which hydrogen sulfide actually causes an annoyance to people that are experiencing it. And the level for that is 7 micrograms per meter cubed, averaged over 30 minutes. So one of the things that we report routinely to Cabinet is the percentage of time at each of those monitoring stations that annoyance threshold is breached. The other threshold that you may be familiar with is the long-term health threshold. And this was something that got a lot of prominence in the judicial review that took place about this last year. So the level for that is 2 micrograms per meter cubed. But averaged over a year. So that's a lower level, but if you like, a chronic level. So having that consistently over a long period of time. And at that stage, it increases the risk of long-term physical health impacts. In the presentation tonight, I'll be mostly talking about that annoyance threshold. The impacts that we hear, I mean, there's lots that gets talked about in terms of the health impacts, but we really shouldn't minimize the impact of annoyance. Actually, you know, that is probably top and center here. The impact that these odors have on people's enjoyment of their houses, of their gardens, of their communities. But with that comes impacts around stress, anxiety, mental health. It can have impacts on causing headaches and nausea, eye irritation, breathing problems. And these are, as is so often the case with other pollutants, this is exacerbated where people have got an underlying condition. So we've been sufficiently concerned about this across agencies that there is a specific mental health support service that's been established for people who really feel their mental health is being impacted by the odours off the quarry. So the challenge for us is to get hydrogen sulfide levels to be sustained below that annoyance threshold. So, you know, there will be times when there are things that happen either meteorologically or on site that causes a spike, but generally speaking, we're aiming to get a sustained level of hydrogen sulfide in the community that is below that annoyance threshold. But we also want to get to a position where hydrogen sulfide levels are below that long-term health threshold as well. So there's two things that we're looking at, and the work of the council, because of the statutory nuisance element, is particularly focused around that annoyance threshold. So this is a graph that actually shows both the level of complaints that we receive and the hydrogen sulfide levels that are measured at each of those 4 monitoring stations. And one of the reasons for showing this is not only to show the trend over time, but also there have been occasions where there's been a suggestion that actually some of this is sort of hyped up on social media and it's a bigger problem than the evidence suggests. That's not the case. This graph will shows very, very clearly that the blue line of complaints is really closely tracking the hydrogen sulfide levels measured at those 4 stations. The highest station in each instance is almost certainly going to be the Gallagale MMF 9, which is the station on the Gallagale estate, because that is the site that consistently has got the highest readings. But you'll see a really close correlation there. But you'll also see that over time, you know, back in February this year, levels were quite low. February into March, then rose up again into the springtime, and then have tailed off and have been relatively stable since May. So, and come back to that in a little bit for some reflections. So the strategy to resolve this, actually, when you put it on a slide, is disarmingly simple in many ways. It's these 3 things: containing the gas that is given off by the landfill site, capturing that gas, and then destroying that gas, burning it either for energy or burning it via flares. And that's the strategy that has been followed by the Environment Agency working with the operator over the last period of time. So the containment is done by either permanent capping or temporary capping ideally with a clay material. There was a trial last year of a thing called Posi Shell that had some short-term impacts, but then it degraded and we went back to where we were. So the containment really is about proper engineered cap on the site, permanent for the bits that are filled, temporary for the bits that have waste in them and are settling, and then we'll have more waste put in. There's then a network of gas pipes that are through the site, both horizontally and vertically, to capture that gas, and then it comes along to destruction. So at the moment, the gas capture off the site is around about 3,000 cubic meters per hour. So it's actually it's a substantial amount of gas that's being generated. And there are two sources of potential odors here for us. One is a failure in that gas collection network that allows gas to escape from the pipes. But the other is, if we haven't got the containment right, then you can get what's called fugitive emissions, which is actually just gas leaking out, making its way out through the uncapped surface or the inadequately capped surface. So fugitive emissions, and then problems with the gas pipes. But as I say, it's a disarmingly simple solution to follow. So the Environment Agency is, as I say, they're the lead enforcement organisation for the site. They have a permit that the site operates to that guides their work, and over the last while they have been actively enforcing the site against that permit and have identified a number of breaches of the permit to which the site operates, and that has been both sides of our abatement notice. We put an abatement notice, served an abatement notice on the site in August last year, and on both sides of that there have been breaches of the environmental permit. And earlier this year, the site was classed, the EA run a categorization from A to F of sites, where A are excellent sites that are well within their permit. F is the lowest grade that a landfill site can be given, and it indicates that there's significant work to be done, and that's the grade that the site currently has. So the EA are continuing to do planned work. They do unannounced visits to the site, unannounced interventions, and are also working with other agencies in order to bring the site into consistent compliance with that environmental permit. In terms of our own role, I mentioned at the beginning, that's to do with statutory nuisance. And the statutory nuisance is a very particular thing, in that for there to be a statutory nuisance, there needs to be, in this case, an odour at a particular level for a particular duration of time, sufficient to be a nuisance. And we've invested a lot of time and energy in actually following up on complaints and measuring odours in the community, both using mechanical devices to do that, but also officers who are specifically trained and have their noses, certified as being accurate for this purpose. It's quite bizarre. So in August 21, we served an abatement notice on Wally's Quarry Limited when we were content that a statutory nuisance threshold had been reached, and that was for both the existence and the likely reoccurrence of a statutory odour smell nuisance. Our notice required abatement within 5 months, but and it would prohibit the Wally's Quarry Limited from permitting or otherwise allowing the reoccurrence of the nuisance thereafter. The notices, our notices and the Environment Agency's notices, both have rights of appeal, and when a notice is appealed, it actually stops the clock effectively. So we have a suspension until that appeal has been determined. So in September 21, Wally's Quarry appealed the notice. Those of you who were around at the time will remember the council allocated £1 million to fund the legal process of which we're now involved in, which is going to court in order to deal with that appeal with a view to having that abatement notice put in place. That abatement notice, when it's put in place by the court, will then have a time set by the court for the problem to have been abated by. So while we said in August 5 months, the clock doesn't start again until we've actually been through this process to court. And we've got 4 week scheduled in court in October of this year in order to deal with this. And those of you who've been around legal process will have a sense that 4 week hearing is indicative of a very complex and contested hearing. So we aim to get that abatement notice in place, and will require Wally's to abate the nuisance and prevent reoccurrence, and there will be a date for securing that. But alongside this, as part of the legal process, the option of reaching a mediated settlement is actually that's something that remains open. I should say, and I should have said this at the beginning, when you get to questions, there may be some questions that I really can't answer tonight because of the legal process that we're involved in. Once we went through that appeal and an abatement notice is in place, and that's assuming that we win the appeal, which I'm very optimistic of, there's then a number of steps that need to be followed. So if that notice isn't complied with, as in if the nuisance isn't abated within the time set or it reoccurs, we then will need to secure evidence that it hasn't been, that the notice has been breached. We need to go through a process of determining what the appropriate enforcement action is. And if we decide that the appropriate enforcement action is prosecution, we would then need to get the approval of the Secretary of State to do that, because the Environment Agency is the lead regulator. So it's a lengthy process that we're involved in. As well as that legal process, there's another aspect of this, the council's role, which I think is really important, which is that of the community champion. So myself and colleagues are involved working with a range of agencies in order to coordinate efforts across agencies in order to resolve this. So we work very, very closely with the Environment Agency, with UKHSA, with the County Council, indeed with the police, with fire and rescue, in order to coordinate efforts wherever we can on this particular issue. And a big part of that, both at officer level and politically, has been a constructive challenge of both the Environment Agency and the government in order to work at pace, because we're very, very conscious that every day that this remains unresolved is a day that our residents are experiencing odours. And as part of that champion role, we're also routinely publishing information in the form of cabinet reports. If you want to see the detail of those, on any cabinet report for the last year or more, you will see a particular item on Wally's Quarry that will detail what we're doing. So the current position against that contain, capture, destroy mantra or strategy, in terms of containment, there's a temporary clay cap has now been completed on what's called phase 2. So it's one element of the site. Permanent capping is currently going on to another area of the site, which is called phase 1. And that should be completed probably August, September time. And the expectation is that those two will significantly reduce the opportunity for fugitive emissions, because they will reduce the amount of site that has inadequate capping and the amount of the site that the working face, if you like, within the landfill. In terms of capture and destroy, over the last year or so, there's been significant increase in the number of gas wells that are in operation. So we're now seeing about 3,000 metre cubed of gas being collected per hour. And that's up about a third from where we were when we started this process. And there are also additional flares that are that have been brought into play by the operator, so that if for any reason the gas engines are down, they can flare off gas. So the odour reports, as you saw on the graph, the odour reports and complaints and the measured hydrogen sulfide are currently reduced from where they were, there are still peaks that we see. So, for example, when we talk about the annoyance threshold being 7 micrograms over a half-hour period, that may mean that actually within that there are spikes of much higher than 7 micrograms. So we will still see we're still seeing some of those peaks. At the moment, we have seen this seasonality before, where at this time of year the odor is better than in the winter time. So at the moment, what we're looking for is some certainty around whether or not what we're seeing is a seasonal benefit. We've seen that in the past and they haven't lasted, or whether it's due to improvements that have been made on site around that capping, around that gas management. So we will need to continue to monitor this over really at least over another year to see a complete seasons data, so that we can see whether or not what we're dealing with is a seasonal fluctuation, a temporary improvement, or a sustained improvement that we're looking for. So the air monitoring continues, and that includes, as well as the 4 monitoring stations, we have, as an authority, bought 2 Jerome handheld tools that monitor air quality, and we're actually using those in homes and premises, where we can leave them for a period of time and see what's happening within people's homes. And we report that data quarterly to Cabinet. So the next report to Cabinet will have a report on Jerome data. The EA's enforcement activity, it continues. And at the moment, there's a huge amount of effort going on within the officer machinery to prepare for the October court hearing, which we're very much on track for. So the situation at the minute, this has been a long ongoing problem. We're seeing some improvement, but we just don't know whether that's a false dawn or whether it's something we can hang our hat on. But in the meantime, we continue with the legal process that we're obliged to follow, which is to progress the appeal regarding the abatement notice for statutory nuisance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Members, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Hamilton? Yeah. Do you want these 3 at a time?
No, I think we'll go. Yeah, if Simon can do 3,
So if we start with Mr. Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Martin. I'm sure everyone's benefited from that. Just, am I correct in my understanding that still, even now, no health body, be that Department of Health or Public Health England, are monitoring or recording the number and nature of GP visits, prescriptions of medicines or treatments, and a stated belief by the patient of their belief with regards causation or potential causation to the Wally's Quarry operations?
Then we've got Rupert Adcock.
Yes, thank you for that presentation. Very useful. I wanted to just, if you could clarify for me, you mentioned about the long-term health threshold, because I know that in the EA reports, they like to say it's below the WHO health threshold, but now this is going into the chronic term, as it's lasted several years. Is Wally's, especially at the Gallingale site, exceeding that health threshold? And are there any health bodies that can monitor that and help us fight this?
Lillian Barker.
Thank you. That was very informative. I'd like to ask, nobody ever seems to mention Gardener's Garden Centre, which is right on the doorstep. What impact has the odour and everything else had on those workers at that business? Thank you.
Right. In terms of the health, there is actually, I'm just trying to remember the word for it, syndromic monitoring, I believe it's called, where there is routine monitoring of whether or not there's any difference in reporting here over time, that as a consequence of this. And there's also been some work done. Forgive me, I don't know whether this is an ongoing thing or just from time to time, looking at whether there's any change in prescribing practice. Okay, so there is actually work that goes on within the what was the CCGs of actually monitoring that sort of stuff, and Public Health England, as was UKHSA, will have informed that. Also, the County Council have got on their website a health symptom tracker that have actually allowed people to who are reporting complaints to also report and track symptoms that they associate with that. And in addition, there is a piece of work that has been commissioned by health colleagues in the county working with the university to do a longer term study of these sorts of issues. So I don't think it would be fair to say that there's no work going on this. There's actually quite a body of work that's going on. It's not central to the work that we're doing, because very consciously the legal process that we're involved in is not predicated on health impact. It's predicated on statutory nuisance. So I think it would be it'd be unfair to say there's no work going on that. There actually is routine monitoring plus some other bespoke pieces of work. In terms of the health threshold, our colleagues at the UK HSA have been very, very focused on this long-term health threshold over recent times, and certainly that has grown in emphasis probably since, I would say, the autumn of last year and through to where we are now. So we actually have a lot of debate around this particular issue and whether or not the health threshold is being met at particular sites or not. Now, one of the difficulties in actually monitoring that is the health threshold is averaged over a very long period of time. So it's 2 micrograms. It's actually sometimes referred to as the lifetime threshold. So it's 2 micrograms over a period of a year. So I'd need to just go back and check, but I think the Environment Agency, when they refer to it being below the health threshold, are actually talking about an immediate health impact, which is a higher level again. Okay, whereas this is, as you say, this is the long-term chronic impact. The Gardener's Garden Centre, the part of the work that we've done as across agencies, and particularly with the help of the Staffordshire Chamber, has been to engage with businesses and talk to them about, you know, what the issues are, etc., and what the impacts have been. We've been lobbied by businesses. We haven't done particular work to monitor the impact on people working in any particular site, but we're acutely aware that businesses are also inconvenienced by this from time to time.
Then if we could have Andy Fear.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. As someone who regularly goes home along the Ulm Road and uses the Silverdale cycleway, I think I can certainly assure members that this is a problem that hasn't gone away, and we we knew we were in for a long haul. Sadly, we are in for a long haul. I was very heartened to hear that we are putting pressure on the Environment Agency. I still think personally, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here who thinks that they are dilatory in an inexplicable way in this regard. I mean, it really is quite striking. I'm glad that we are putting that pressure on, and I'll seek assurances from the Chief Executive that that's going to continue. Could I also say thank you very much for the report? I thought it would be useful if that could be made available to members. In particular, I thought the graph was excellent because it is the antidote to gaslighting with people who say it's all made up and such like. The graph there was a very, very visible piece of evidence that that is not the case. Could I also ask, I mean, the Chief Executive talked in part of his presentation about one part of the legal process. And again, I'm very glad to hear that the council are ready to go on this. But let's talk of mediated settlement. Could I just ask, has the operator shown any interest in such a process?
Stubbs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Local reports this week have claimed that a enforcement notice has been withdrawn despite the operator failing to meet a deadline. Would the legal officer probably, or the chief exec, be willing to comment on that? I guess what I'm trying to find out, is that true or is it local news?
Steve Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a meeting yesterday with the police about various things, and one of the things they brought up was the lorries stacking up on Cemetery Road. I know there's some talk about them being admitted to the site to get them off the main road. Is there any progress on that at all? Thank you, Martin. Oh, thank you for the report, Martin. It's very, very interesting.
All right, thanks. I'll just take those in order. In terms of the pressure with the Environment Agency that the Councillor Fear references, and I suspect the leader may want to comment on this as well. It actually makes for interesting work, because on one hand we are actually working with them through things like the multi-agency effort is coordinated through a strategic coordination group, and we're actually working with them there. And there is across all agencies, we challenge each other on what we're doing, what our thinking is, what our assumptions are, and that is a healthy part of the constructive dialogue. But there has been, as I referenced earlier, there has been a frustration about the length of time that this has gone on. And certainly I have engaged with the Chief Executive of the Environment Agency to try and make progress. There have been various political interfaces with the Environment Agency to try and accelerate progress. And indeed, it was probably 2 weeks ago now, the leader of the council and myself were on a Zoom call with the minister responsible for the Environment Agency again to push on that. So there's a lot of effort that is going on and continues to go on to push, to challenge all agencies in order to make progress on this. In terms of the specific question on mediation, Councillor Fear, that's one of the questions that I won't be drawn on and comment on here today because of the process that we're in. The question that Councillor Stubbs asked around the withdrawal of an enforcement notice, that was an enforcement notice that was issued by the Environment Agency, and my understanding is that that's actually been withdrawn because they have now had sufficient information from the operator about the strategies and the practice on site that it actually satisfies the needs of the enforcement notice. So and hence it's withdrawn. The issue of the lorries queuing has been a really live issue. My colleague Dave Adams is currently leading on that for the council and is organising dialogue between the County Council as the Highways Authority, the police, the Environment Agency and ourselves in order to try to come to a solution to that that doesn't simply push the problem onto other roads as well. So we're looking at practice in other landfill sites around this and practice in other high volume venues for HGVs, but it's certainly something that's being attended to because it has become an additional problem of late.
Annabelle Lawley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've actually got two questions, sorry. The first one was your response to Councillor Fox-Hewitt regarding the symptom tracker on the County Council site. I actually think that's really useful, and considering we've had over 20,000 reports on our site, can we put something at the end of when you have a report to link them to the council site so that people know that that's there? Would be the first thing.
Yeah.
The second, I know you probably can't answer that here and now, but just as a consideration. The other thing is all of the monitoring is based on hydrogen sulfide. There's other gases included in the landfill gas. Do we have the thresholds that are considered as nuisance and things like that for other gases? And is that still going to be monitored also?
Any other questions?
Is there any other questions?
No. Okay. There is a link on our site already to that symptom tracker for the Staffordshire County Council one, and yeah, it's our colleagues at UKHSA again routinely monitor the other components of landfill gas as part of this. Those monitoring stations collect data, and there has been nothing to suggest that there's a problem with any other gas.
Councillor Tagg, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think, first of all, thank you to the Chief Executive for giving us a presentation, also for the work that he's putting in on the council side of this, and obviously not only holding the A to account, but also overseeing the legal action which the council has taken. And thank you to the legal team that are also working on that. Still a long way to go, but we've also come a long way in that process, and we know we're stuck in a legal sort of procession towards the court date later in the year, and that has to go through its, and it makes residents very frustrated when you get delays which the court imposes on us. There's nothing we can do. I think just three things really for me. Councillor Fia touched on the graph, the complaint tracker with the hydrogen sulfide levels, and I think he's quite right. Early on in this, certain people, whether that was from the company, whether that was from other agencies, were saying that this is all just a social media storm whipped up by the MP or something, whipped up by the council. As you can clearly see on that, those complaint levels tally with the levels which we're finding on the monitoring equipment. So I think that you're quite right, Councillor Fia, what you say on that. Secondly, the strategy to resolve this, contain, capture and destroy, sounds simple, doesn't it? But unfortunately, yet the EA have not cracked this at all. And as members have already said, there is still an odour problem. We've seen it getting better, and then we've seen get it worse again. And my fear is we will be heading back in the same area. So that pressure on the EA that we're putting through numerous channels still needs to be kept up on them as the regulator of the site to hold the operator to account. But the council will do its bit, and we will continue to press this abatement notice process. And I think that's what our residents want to do. I think what the feeling we get from councillors here is we still want to do that on behalf of our residents and to see that through. And that will be my job to work with the Chief Executive and Cabinet and the rest of the members to ensure we do that so we get some resolution for our population. This, as Martin said right at the beginning, when you talk about stakeholders, the main stakeholders in this, the main sufferers, are the populations that live around there, whether that's in Thistlebury Ward, whether that's in Silverdale, Nutton Town, Crossheath and beyond. And we must do all we can and continue to do all we can to resolve this for them and hold those to account who have caused this issue as much as we can. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Are members happy to receive the update? Agenda item 6, statement of the Leader of the Council. Members, the next item of business on the evening agenda is the leader's statement. A copy can be found on pages 5 to 8 of your supplementary agenda pack. I will now invite members to put questions to the leader or relevant portfolio holder. I will take each paragraph of the statement in turn and will invite up to 3 questions at a time before I ask the leader to respond. If I could remind members, this isn't a debate, and once the leader has responded, there is no right for members to reply. Members, we note that in paragraph 1 that the Cabinet met on the 7th of June, and we moved to paragraph 2, which is about the climate change sustainability based pledge. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 2? So we've got Councillor Wilkes and Councillor Hutchinson. Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the Mayor. Recently, I had the opportunity of having a look at a new all-electric vehicle. And while I was there, I was talking to those that have actually got them. Their habits have changed from refilling for a few minutes to actually half an hour. And in that time, they actually do the shopping, have coffee, some even go for a meal. We're even having book their journeys via watch hotels, actually have charging points. So the question to the leader, the EV charging points are appearing in many council-owned car parks. Is there a plan to roll out more?
Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, in paragraph 3, I'd just like to ask, it was good to see so many trees planted recently in the green space earlier in the year, including at Sandy Lane in my Maybank ward. I just want to ask, when does the next phase of tree planting start, and where will the trees be planted? Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Councillor Eddington Plunkett.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think it's, planting all these trees is great, but please can the leader reassure me that we've got enough council officers that in future, down the line, we're going to be able to maintain these trees.
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam. Yes, thank you for those questions. First one from Councillor Ian Wilts. It's great to see some of these EV charging points going into the town centre at King Street car park, also at the Goose Street, to name a couple of them. I think we need to do more because Councillor Wilkes is right. More and more people are going to be moving over to electric cars. And the item before us today is to talk about the base pledge that we've agreed with the rest of the districts and the county and Staffordshire through a sustainability board. And one of the first things we've done on that committee is to ask the county council to put forward a strategy on rolling out EV across the county, and that will be the districts and the county working together to ensure we get that rollout. And I think a strategy is coming later in the year, followed by looking for a partner to deliver that in the private sector. It won't be the council doing this, just as it hasn't been on these car parks already in town. So I think working with our colleagues at the county and also across the districts, we can probably get a better deal on the rollout of this and make it probably quicker as well. So that's the answer to that one. Thank you. Second one from Councillor Hutchinson. Yes, really great to see those trees planted in the first couple of phases that were carried out earlier in the year. Particularly, as he said, the Sandy Lane green space, one of those that was previously under threat for development until this administration came along, and we decided to save that, and we've since planted trees on it, and it is now protected as an urban carbon capture area along with 60 plus other sites across the borough. But we're going to go further than that, Councillor Hutchinson. The next phase has already been with officers to decide areas to bring forward. We do have a list that was presented to Cabinet and also to full council in February. And some of those sites, I won't name them all, are in Thistlebury, Westlands, Clayton Town, Maybank, Woolstanton, Butt Lane, Torque, Kidsgrove, Ravencliff, Silverdale. And particularly the one in Maybank for you, Councillor, is on Morton Parade, obviously between the grass space between the tennis courts and I believe it's Edward Avenue, I think it is, along there, which is an area where we will start to plant trees. So it's a programme going forward that we're going to keep doing, because we need these trees to be planted for when we try to reach, obviously, our goal of carbon zero. We'll need to offset a lot of that, because we won't be able to get rid of all the carbon. But a very valid question from Councillor Edmondson Plunkett there, I think, because it has actually come up before at council as well, is that the more trees we plant, the more we have to think about maintenance. So there are two things we're doing there. One is we're ensuring that we're planting the right trees and species in the right places. What we don't want is what we've had when for example, in my ward in the Westlands, when the estates were set out in the 1930s, they either adopted some of the bigger trees that are already there, or they planted really large species that became really large and are now overpowering the area. So we'll do that, which will cut down on the big maintenance issues in the future. But secondly, also by planting trees in a lot of green spaces, it'll be less grass cutting on those green spaces in different ways of grass cutting, which will free up our staff to be able to become more maintenance orientated on the trees. So we'll have a programme for that. And through Trevor's Johnson's portfolio, he's working with officers to ensure over the next, it'll be 15 to 20 years, we begin to then change that to more tree maintenance and keeping them upkeeping of the trees, which will be important, and it'd be less on other things such as large open green spaces with grass. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any more speakers on paragraph 2? No. So members, paragraph 3 is a one council programme update. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 3? So we've got Councillor Fox-Hewitt and Councillor Barry Panter. So Councillor Fox-Hewitt, and Mark Collins, sorry Mark. And Stephen Sweeney, okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just like to ask the leader, with regards to the One Council project progress, what evaluation processes are in place to take stock and to ensure that residents are not encountering any negative experiences before the project moves on to the next phase? Thank you.
Councillor Barry Panter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome the fact that no resident will be excluded from contacting the council and that they can still visit and phone as well as accessing services online. Can the leader assure us that this approach will continue? I ask this also on a personal basis because my wife made disability inquiry saying she was not on online facilities and they were very helpful to her indeed.
Councillor Mark Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I remember when the leader was first leader of the council. He's been leader of the council twice. And the first time Councillor Tagg was leader, we adopted as a corporate priority transforming the way the council works in order to achieve excellence. And to my mind, the One Council programme is very much the 2.0 version of that. I think it's produced some outputs that we're all delighted with, not least of which the website, which everyone will know is a huge leap up from where we were before. And the programme is, I believe, modernising the council with new ways of working, and it's delivering benefits, not least of which it's helping us to balance the budget. So my question for the leader, I suppose, would be, firstly, would he join me in congratulating the staff who are delivering the programme, because it does seem to be working very successfully thus far, and would he accept my warm approbation on the progress that's already been made in transforming the way this council works to achieve excellence?
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, three good questions there, really. I think that the first one from Councillor Fox-Hewitt is an important one. And we've got a one council board that is led by elected members, myself, the deputy leader, and also the councillor in front, Councillor Holland, and the vice chair of FAPS, who's now Councillor Bryan, of course, has been meeting now for over a year or so, monitoring the programme. We also have, as Councillor Fox-Hewitt is aware, regular meetings with the unions, where the subject of the One Council project comes up at a regular basis. And we also take things regularly through to Cabinet. The reason it's come to the leader's statement today is because we've been through Cabinet with this, and then of course, as it already has been, to the scrutiny, the FAP scrutiny committee, which is the monitoring committee to this. So I think there's that will receive reports on the evaluation, which our key officer for this, our HR officer Georgie, will produce a dashboard of the performance around this so that we can monitor that and make any changes along the way, and also working with our union colleagues and also with scrutiny to ensure we get the right outcomes for this. I think, thank you for the question and the comments from Councillor Panther. I think it is really important that we don't leave people behind on this. You know, most people now are accessing things either on their phone or on their laptop, aren't they? But there are those that still need to have that phone conversation, and there's those that still need to come into this building or go to the the Kidsgrove Centre when we can open that at an appropriate level, hopefully with Kidsgrove Town Council in partnership now. And it will be really important that we keep those things going. But we, as you said, Councillor Panther, the online offer is increasing, and that is the easiest way to access services. So we hope more people do that in the future, but we'll always think of those that we're leaving behind. And then finally, thank you to Councillor Holland for that, and I agree with his comments and think that this is a important way of improving the council. It's learning also from the COVID experience of different ways of working, and crucially, as he said, it's about also saving resources and using our resources better so that we increase and improve services for the public. Thank you.
Councillor Steve Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Holland has stolen my thunder. Thank you.
And Councillor Edgington Plunkett.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And just following on from Councillor Fox-Hewitt's question, really, to the leader. So are the surveys being conducted to the public to fill out and send back? Is that a yes or no?
Filling out forms.
So asking. So is the council asking the residents about this?
Sorry, yes. I mean, obviously the new web page, for example, with the new forms and integrated way of providing services, there's customer feedback forms, etc., and everything on there. I think in the, as we talked about in the past, we're not turning off the traditional methods. What we are doing is adding new methods of ways of people accessing services, whether it's a garden waste collection they want to sign up to, whether it's, even such things as paying your council tax and getting that problem sorted out at an early stage if you've got a problem with paying your council tax. So I think people are seeing the benefits of this, and there's always a customer feedback mechanism for that, which will feed into the whole performance of this going forward. Thank you.
Are there any more speakers on paragraph 3? No. Paragraph 4 is about discretionary rate relief policy. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 4? Councillor Andrew Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Personally, I welcome the recently updated discretionary rate relief policy, which replaces the one that was adopted in 2016. But can the portfolio holder explain to members why the reason for updating the policy?
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond?
I'll hand that over to Councillor Sweeney, who's the portfolio holder for this area.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Yes, Councillor Parker, thank you for the question. New policy has been devised in conjunction with a scoring matrix that awards points based on answers given on the application form. This new scoring matrix then determines the amount of discretionary relief that can be awarded, ensuring all applications are treated equally and awards given consistently with like-for-like businesses. Thank you.
Any more speakers on paragraph 4? No. So members, paragraph 5 is about celebrating Newcastle-under-Lyme's 850th anniversary in 2023. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 5?
Yes, thank you. As I'm reading these, I can see that the Deputy Mayor is going to be overseeing the development. Please may I ask him, is the Deputy Mayor willing to work with the relevant councillors from both sides to create the strategy to deliver this and also deliver?
Councillor Stephen Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The other week, a couple of weekends ago, myself and Dr. Sphere next to me had the pleasure of going to Bovington, the Tank Museum at Bovington, to see Tank Fest. And anybody of a certain age who made Airfix models, it was like paradise, because every Airfix model you ever made was trundling around this arena. But in the actual museum itself, I had the pleasure of seeing Sergeant Kite's medals. Now, Sergeant Kite's memorial is actually outside this building. He's the only soldier in what was the Empire, but I suppose Commonwealth now, to receive the military medal 3 times during World War II. Special interest for me because I'm a governor at Hassel CP School, and Sergeant Kite was a pupil at Hassel CP School. It's just really something for the for Councillor White, really, that when he looks at his things for the 850 years, this is a real hero of Newcastle, and I think it's something worth making something of. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Sutherland Diamond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to ask a question. As we have a lot of heritage in Kidsgrove and our surrounding areas, will this include Kidsgrove in this programme? Thank you.
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would. And I think it's, as it says in the report, you know, the programme to date, we haven't just started to think about this now, actually. It's been going on for a couple of years of preparation, and a working group which had members at the time from across cross-party and also from outside sources have put together a programme. And what we've done is we've asked, obviously, Councillor White, who will be the mayor during the main part of the 850th celebration years, will be leading on that to refine that. But of course, it will, as the process in this council is, things come to cabinet and then they go to scrutiny. So there will be plenty of opportunities for members to interact on this, so we can have, and we will get behind this programme, which is I wasn't, can't remember, wasn't around for the 800th one, but I've seen photos and the markets we had, the Queen's visit, etc. So there are many facets that we want to replicate from that, but also we're in a different age now where we can really sort of diverse into other different ways of celebrating as well. We've got our museum, we've got the Rampton Park, there's loads of things, and as the cabinet report says, it's got a list of things that we've already come forward with out of the working group that took place before the elections, actually. But I do understand and accept we've got new members now, and of course Councillor White, I'm sure, will feed those views in at the appropriate time through the mechanisms we've got. And I think the question over Kidsgrove is very relevant, because yes, this is the 850th anniversary of the whole borough as well, so we must ensure we use, such as the Victoria Hall, etc., and all the things that are going on in Kidsgrove, and putting a slant for the anniversary on them, as well as we are doing, I think, everything we should do in Newcastle. And I'll just say, if Councillor White wants to add anything, he's already got down to the job since he's been appointed. I'll hand over to him to say more.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. In relation to the 850, we work with all parties and all agencies as well. So if you have any feed or any ideas that you can bring them to me for the celebration for the 850th, you can email me or contact me. Thank you.
Are there any more questions on paragraph 5? No. So moving on to paragraph 6. This is about the 4th quarter finance and performance review. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 6? So we've got Councillor Lillian Barker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask, relating to the performance indicator for antisocial behaviour, can the portfolio holder give an outline of the new police model that has just come in and how it will improve policing in the borough, particularly in my area? I'm going to say Greater Chesterton because that covers everywhere, and in the town centre. Thank you.
Councillor David Hutchinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to talk about paragraph 6.2. It's very good to see that the dry recycling and the food waste recycling have both increased, and the amount going to landfill is now down approximately 10% on the same period last year. When we recycle more, we send less materials to landfills. Material decaying in landfills often emits methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas 30 times as potent as carbon dioxide. So the less of that, the better. I spent a day recently working with and chatting with some of the collection crews. It was great fun, and I loved the steel toe-capped boots that they made me wear. But I'd like to go on record to say well done to Andrew Bird, the head of the Sustainable Environment Services at the Borough Council, and to everyone in his team for their efficiency in their collections. In the period mentioned in the report, 1.6 million different collections were done, and they had a 99.95% success rate for those collections. They were collected with no problem. That is a success rating that we should really all celebrate. So well done to everyone involved. Thank you.
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond?
I'll hand both of those to the portfolios if I can. I think the one from William Barker is for Jill Heesom, and then obviously the second one from Councillor Hutchinson is to the portfolio holder who brought in the new recycling system of what we're seeing the benefits of now.
Thank you, Lillian. I spoke with the police commander for Newcastle, Chief Inspector John Owen, and the new, I don't know if you're aware, but the new police model began on the 27th of June, so it's early days. Policing numbers have significantly increased. They've gone up from 355 to 560 county-wide. However, at present, because I was quite interested in knowing what the figures were for the officer uplift for Newcastle Borough, and at the moment, sadly, they can't confirm that because they're still tweaking how it's going to fit in throughout the county. But what it does mean for Newcastle is where you did have neighbourhood officers, you've now also got local officers who were previously described as response, dedicated to your area. The sole role will be to police a specific place. So in essence, an area gets effective 24-hour coverage with the same officers, knowing the area, the individuals and the problems. What you won't get is an increase in dedicated named officers like you previously had, but the local PCSOs and sergeant will be the conduit for yourselves and the communities. I might be going over this again. This means a committed staff coverage over a 24/7 period. Because I know there has been some concerns about out of hours cover for antisocial behaviour and various things. And these are going to be teams that are dedicated specifically to the Newcastle Borough. This will significantly support the police with efforts to reduce crime, antisocial behaviour and to respond quicker when needed. There's also going to be 10 local harm reduction hubs made up of dedicated problem solvers who will tackle high demand, high risk crimes and antisocial behaviour through prevention, effective partnership working and early intervention. So the local communities, and that includes yours as well, Councillor Barker, the local communities will now see far more police officers. There's going to be far more attention placed on local issues and working with local partners. The emphasis will be on local policing. I will say this for any councillors that are interested. Chief Inspector Owen's been invited to the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee meeting on the 5th of September to give a presentation on the new policing model and to answer any questions from the committee. So any councillors who are not members of that committee are able to come along as spectators and hear what the new commander for Newcastle has to say.
Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Hutchinson's basically said it all, but the interesting thing that we've not just talked about is that now residual waste in this borough is down by 11%. Recycling is constantly above 50%. And we know now that our landfill figure is 3% and falling, as Councillor Hutchinson just was saying. And we now brought in some care homes amongst our weekly food waste collections. And we were collecting between 60 and 70 tonnes of food waste per week, which I think is far too much, but it's all being put to use. And it is now we've taken in the care homes, we're approaching 100 tonnes a week. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any more speakers on paragraph 6? No. Moving on to paragraph 7 is about the air quality ministerial directive in relation to Etruria Road, Basford. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 7? Mark Holland, Andrew Fear and Richard Gorton. Okay, so if we could start with Mark Holland, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. New members haven't had the benefit of my rant on this before, but established members of the council will be well aware of my position on this and probably a lot of what I'm about to say. I should declare my interest as a member of the trustee board at the New Vic Theatre that will be potentially very severely affected, but I should also declare my greater overriding interest as a lover and champion of all of the people of Newcastle Borough, many of whom stand not to benefit from the proposed bus gate or from any of the infrastructure that DEFRA intends to impose upon us at the behest of ecological lawyers in another country. And I say that not because I have a particular political view. I say it for the cold hard reason that these measures, whether it's a bus gate in Etruria or whether it's a chargeable clean air zone in the city of Stoke-on-Trent next door, these measures will not take a single gram of carbon out of the atmosphere. They won't reduce the particulates. They don't make the air less polluted. They simply move the problem from one area to another, and they spread the misery associated with pollution and traffic congestion to different people. It is as simple as that. When the ministerial directives first were handed down to us, members will remember that there were 2 of them, and I can understand retrofitting buses. Retrofitting buses has a measurable impact on the amount of pollution that certain vehicles are releasing into the atmosphere. This does nothing to help us. It does nothing to help the people of our borough or indeed of the city next door. So if I have a question for the leader and for the cabinet, perhaps it would be, would they agree with me that at this stage, it's vital that we receive support from our partners on the JAG, the City Council, and from the MPs and from anyone else who is able to chip in to say, at this stage, is this really necessary? Can we not reappraise the numbers in light of the fact that rising fuel prices have done more than any of this nonsense to take cars off the roads, to take vehicles off the roads, and to reduce the amount of pollution? Can we at this stage reappraise the numbers of journeys and the amount of traffic congestion and vehicle pollution that's in the area? Because with every month that passes, there are more modern cars and trucks on the road. There are more electric vehicles, there are more hybrid vehicles. This is a problem that science and technology is resolving for us. And that's great. I love progress. Progress is fantastic. And it is right at this stage that government and others recognize that, and they say, okay, if there isn't a breach there, or if the limits are not being breached anymore, we need to scrub around these plans. We don't need them. It is unnecessary to do, and therefore we shouldn't do it. And that applies to both the measures that we have agreed, or on our behalf, the members that represent this council on the joint group have agreed are necessary at Etruria. And it also applies, I believe, to the other breaches that are taking place. It's a sadness to me to see that the city next door is considering a chargeable clean air zone, because I don't believe that a tax on businesses and on businesses' customers is necessarily the right answer either. But certainly the answer in Etruria has got to be that we revisit those figures and we ask our partners, our friends in high places, to help us have a really, really good look and to help us reach the conclusion that I believe they should reach, which is that this is unnecessary. We should stop it, not have it.
That's like Andy Fear.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I fear that what I'm about to say is merely a précis of what Councillor Holland has said. However, clearly pollution is a bad thing, but at the same time, we need to look at this in the round. And as Councillor Holland has wisely pointed out, in my opinion, we need to see how these things are developing. My understanding is that we are now at a level of natural compliance in this area. And my concern is that if we do not reassess where we're going, we're using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Sledgehammers can be very dangerous. And what we run the risk of doing here is throwing large amounts of traffic into other parts of the borough, throwing it in particular past schools, which is when it's fairly obvious when one looks at the road network where this traffic is likely to go. And as Councillor Holland has pointed out, that seems to me to be simply spreading the misery. There is nothing positive about this. So again, would the leader agree that where we are, we need a reappraisal? Would he also agree that clearly this sort of diktat came from the top, that we do need people like our MPs to lobby to make sure that we have a fair and equitable solution to this problem, which does seem to be resolving itself?
Councillor Richard Gorton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you'd allow a relatively new member to comment and to ask a question. I mean, what comes across, I think, from the leader's written statement is a very understandable lack of enthusiasm for this particular scheme. It's perfectly possible, though, that this authority could be lumbered or saddled with a scheme that very few people want or support. And I do agree with the previous two councillors who've spoken, really, if air quality around the A500 roundabout improves, it will be at the expense of exporting the problem in terms of congestion and pollution to other parts of Basford, Maybank and Woolstanton. Now, I note that the authority is still continuing to work on the final business case, and that's underway. But my question really to Councillor Tagg is, given the concern that's been expressed by many residents and business people over the bus gate, will the leader consider establishing a cross-party subcommittee or working group, which would be established solely to scrutinise the final business case, and if appropriate, challenge its findings, conclusions, and above all, its modelling? I think an action like that by the authority will go some way to reassure local residents that the busgate scheme will receive from this authority detailed and sustained critical investigation. And perhaps by taking this sort of action, we can persuade ministers to change the directive. Although I guess at the moment, with the way things are, it's actually very difficult to find out who's doing what in the government. Anyway, perhaps I ought to end it there. Thank you.
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond to those three?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, and broadly agree with all three speakers, actually. I think the passion Mark put into there, I've shared all the way through this process. I mean, it first came to light really in the 2018 period, didn't it, when this ministerial directive was put on for those two things on the borough. One, the breach on a very small stretch of Etruria Road, particularly up from the bank and past the lights up to the turning for Victoria Street, and also the retrofitting directive was put on this borough council, which I'm pleased to say we've implemented that as a borough council. But of course, the bigger problem is, as Councillor Fear has said, is that traffic displacement, particularly near to schools in those rush hour periods when children are going to school or coming home. And my fear is also, when this first came to light, the Wally's Quarry issue was was in the background, but since then it's one of the main issues. And anybody that were to stand at the bottom of the roundabout here during the rush hour time will see red industry vans, not even that, lorries coming down Etruria Road in the direction which they would be banned during that rush hour period under these proposals. Where are they going to go? They're going to go up Grange Lane. They're going to go past children driving to Wilson Primary School, to St Margaret's, to Maybank Infant School, and to the Ulm Academy. They'll go right next to past the Ulm Academy because they won't go where they should go, which is up the A34 and back down again and on the A500. So these are the problems that are facing us. But I think we've got a window of opportunity here with, probably one of the advantages of COVID is that it has changed people's travel patterns. Anybody that comes into town around the rush hour period will know that. If that's expanded the rush hour, that is then actually something which is leading to the natural compliance we're seeing, particularly on the Newcastle side. And I think we should be pressing that further. Colleagues at the County Council are looking to support us on this. And I think I had a conversation with the leader of the City Council last week, and they are looking to work with us on this as well on the Etruria one. So I think we need to make a united opportunity to address the government on this. And also, I think, as Councillor Holland said, our MPs need to be involved, both the City Central MP and also Aaron, our MP for Newcastle. And he has been involved and he's willing to take it up. There's a lot going on at the moment, as Councillor Gorton said. I'd like them to concentrate on this as we go forward. I think on the scrutiny issue, I think really for Councillor Gorton's for information, we've had obviously cabinet reports in January 2019, March 2019, April 2019, July 2019, October 2019. We had a scrutiny session in November 2020. We had another cabinet meeting which was about the outline business case, which, just for new members' information, when we asked for the outline business case to be developed further, we made 2 points. One, we wanted the post-COVID traffic issues to be looked at to see whether there'd been any change and any need for this. And secondly, we wanted the government to, via our MPs, to lobby the government to try and say that this was not something we wanted. So even though this council agreed the outline business case going forward, on the way to it being a full business case, we wanted to try and get some sense seen, and this stopped. So we'll continue that as we go forward. It's been on every leader's statement through that period, which the cabinet have had that. So every subsequent leader's statement we put it on, and has allowed Councillor Holland to do that rant, as he called it, about how amazingly daft this idea is, particularly as we're now reaching hopefully natural compliance on this. And going forward, we'll be having scrutiny on this as we move forward on this, and we'll continue to report back to scrutiny. What I would say is that for that scrutiny working group you talk about, Councillor Gorton, I think Councillor Ian Wilkes's scrutiny committee will be the place to set that up as part of their work programme, and I would support that if we did have a subgroup of that group with members, open to all members actually to come along, as we do with these groups, as well as Councillor Heason said earlier about the police one. But if that could be raised, has been raised, and if Ian Wilkes can take that on board as part of the chair of his committee when he does the work programme, I'd be more than happy with that, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Annabel Lawley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I echo everything that's been said already, to be honest, but the road we're talking about, I've actually walked down myself to council this evening. I can't deny there is a lot of traffic, but that's also the reason why a lot of businesses have chosen to be on that road. There's a nursery there, there's many hairdressers, there's many beauty salons, all this kind of thing. There was a consultation at the New Vic Theatre a while back now, and the advice given to all those people that work nearby was essentially just to get an electric car or see if the business owner could fund that, which is very unrealistic for small local businesses. So my question is essentially, what can we do for local businesses with this plan in place?
Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, much has been said. I'd just like to state that for once, rarely, I agree with the concerns stated by Councillor Holland, particularly about this not actually removing carbon. I'm particularly concerned about the lack of any robust impact assessments on how this will play out across Newcastle. And I was going to say that we do really need to speak as one voice and one council on that going forward, but I am reassured by Simon's comments just on the ministerial directive. Let's hope the prospect of an imminent new Prime Minister will bring a new ministerial directive. Thank you.
Dag, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. I think as with the other issue on the west side of the Borough, the Wally's Quarry one, which is like a flip around of this, isn't it? We've got a political union on this. I think we can go forward hopefully on this, on the eastern side's issue with this, because I think those traffic assessments have been done, but I would say that human nature has also not been played into that, I don't think. And I think I'm not going to go into, I could give you my chapter and verse on what I think is going to happen, but I've just told you about the Red Industries lorries. I know which way they will go. They won't go all the way up to the top of the A500 talk and come down the A34. They will cut through Grange Lane, So I think businesses, yes, the meeting at the New Vic was organised by the Basford and Cliff Vale Residents Association. So I believe the Stoke members and officers were involved in that. But again, I think if the move to electric is something we talked about earlier with the EV points, it's going to come, it's going to gather pace. And I think through this, because in the end of the day, we want that pollution level to be decreased. because again, for health reasons. What we need to do is ensure that if we are now reaching natural compliance, that we actually keep it there and keep it below, so the government don't come back and say, oh, this has gone wrong. You're going to have to put in a buzz gate or a wider CAS, which could bring into our town centre into this, which would be absolutely disastrous for our town centre. So what I think we need to do is use some of that government money for that sort of behavioural change to keep it down that level. And that could be funding or giving, funding to businesses or to individuals to switch to electric or use those routes. So we could actually get an advantage. And the government seem to be, they've spent an awful amount of money on this already, and they're willing to spend an awful amount more, as well as disrupting lives and businesses in the town. What we have to say to them is, don't do that. Just give us the money and we'll bring in more electric cars onto those routes, which will help to keep that compliance under that level, which means we have to have a restriction.
Are there any more speakers on paragraph 7? No. Paragraph 8 is about Kidsgrove Sports Centre. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 8? We've got Andy Fear.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. One of the things about being on the council a long time is you have these little sagas, and it's nice to see this one coming to its close. Just like to ask having listened to the saga all the way through, just like to ask the leader, did we ever find the £6 million? Do you think we ever will find it? And if we do, can we have an assurance that it will be invested in this sports centre?
Councillor Dave Allport.
I'd like to congratulate all parties involved in the completion of this project, including yourself, Madam Mayor, as a member of the board. However, I am disappointed in the omission of acknowledgement of Kidsgrove Town Council's grant of £70,000 towards this project, which contrary to the MP's complete lack of understanding of local government finances, is almost a third of our annual precept, and coincidentally his expenses.
Councillor Craig Skelding.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to make a brief comment and say what an outstanding job's been done on the reopening of Kidsgrove Sports Centre. Earlier today, I had the opportunity and pleasure to meet David Rigby, one of the trustees, who kindly showed me around, gave me a guided tour of the facility. And whilst I was on site, a majority of the equipment was being delivered, and you got a great feeling of all hands on deck during this visit, as everything was coming in, and you can see this project coming together. I'd like to urge anyone who gets the opportunity to visit the centre to take this opportunity and go through with it, because although I think the footfall, the feedback from what I've received in my ward is that the footfall is going to be quite a large thing, not just during the opening weeks, but ongoing into the future of this venture. I'd also like to take this opportunity to invite Madam Mayor and the leader. Don't worry, it's not invited to a spinning class or anything like that, but to invite you to join me in congratulating everyone involved in this project and on congratulating them on the progress up to date and on a job well done. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond, please?
Yes, I would. I think, the completion of this project and that imminent opening on the 25th of July is amazing after all the work we've been through. And I'm sorry that I omitted Kidsgrove Town Council from this, but at the cabinet meeting, we did actually discuss all of the finances. But yes, that money came in as well from so fully, and nobody said it yet, but that 360,000 that's been brought in through the, in fact, it might even be included in that actually, from the community groups who've levered in because they did apply for that, which has been really crucial for that match funding to come in for this project. And I think it's really good. And Councillor Skelding, I think I've already had a game of badminton on there last Sunday. I wasn't wearing badminton clothing, and the racket was still almost in its wrapping, but they just put the net up and we had a knock around in there. And the sports hall really is the absolute jewel in that sports centre, the biggest one in Staffordshire. Bring it back into use, and it just looks like a brand new facility. Anybody was thinking it was just going to be a lick of paint and and there we were. This is a brand new facility, as it should be for the £7.5 million we spent on it as a whole, with all the partners putting money into it. So I think it's really great. And yeah, take up the opportunity. I'm sure the Mayor will as well of taken up Alpha from Councillor Skeldon. And I think, you know, this facility's got a bright future. And I know that the community group that are running it I've got the head screwed on the way to run this. And they've got a good manager I've met the manager who's going to manage the site, and they've got a good trustees. And as Councillor Skeldon mentioned, Dave Rigby, you've got Mark Clues, you've got yourself, Madam Mayor, and others as well who've sort of nurtured this project through. And it's been a really honour for me to be involved in it, to deliver this now and see that site is just amazing. Thank you.
Councillor Sylvia Diamond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that's put the work in, the local community groups, the guys that have started this off a good few years ago, and yourself, Madam Mayor. But can you just clarify, at the beginning of tonight, you said it was opening on the 27th, but it states on their website it's the 25th. Has that moved?
27th, I believe, is the Saturday. So the main opening day is going to be the Saturday. It probably will be opening a couple of days before, and they'll just gradually build it in. But the main opening day is the 27th. And I'm not sure who's going to open it yet. It's all under wraps still. Okay. Is there any other speakers on this item? No. Paragraph 9 is about the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 9? Yeah. Councillor Andy Fear.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. This is just looking to my colleagues of the future. There's quite a few beacons lit in the celebrations, and some of them had some quite decorative tops, with the crown and what have you. Have any of those gone to the museum? Because obviously it's not history now, but in another 20 years or so, it will be history, and it would be nice to know that we've got one for the future, so to speak.
Councillor Gary White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sure all members will agree that the Platinum Jubilee celebrations were something to be very proud of, both nationally and within our borough. And our monarch has tirelessly served us for over 70 years now. So I'm delighted to see in the leader's statement that there is consideration being given to renaming the garden room the Queen Elizabeth II room, which I think is a brilliant idea. I'd also like to just say that within my ward, we have 2 parish councils who are very active, namely Madeley and Betley. And both of them had multi-day celebrations throughout this weekend, which were very successful. Indeed, Madeley restarted the Jubilee Carnival, which was last held in 1988. And that was so successful that in the end, over 2,000 people took part. No doubt this has happened across our borough, so therefore will the leader join me in congratulating all such community events which were so successfully held. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so the first one on the beacon, that is in the museum, I believe, and it will be for people to visit and have a look at that. So that's one thing we wanted to do. Secondly, the 2 points that Councillor Gary White has raised, I think the commemoration of the room, I'm already in discussions with the County Council, who are the joint tenants and owners of this building to ensure I don't see any problems with that. I think we'd even tie in the official naming of it with the 850th anniversary if one of Councillor White's, Simon White's ideas, and one thing we are progressing is to have a royal visit attached to that, and it'd be good to probably at that point to do an official renaming of the room. And I think this is the part of the room, which we have a division down the middle. This is the garden room, as everybody knows, and this is the wedding venue or the civil partnership venue. So it would be really, I think, for people to put that on their invites that I'm getting married or whatever in the QE2 room is a real good sort of thing, and the Queen's Garden is outside, which is Queen Victoria statue. So you can see this building is obviously new and doesn't have that history. We have the name of Astley for one room. Obviously, the founder of the modern circus was born in Newcastle, but to build history in this room, we need to do things like that, and I think this will be a really good commemoration for the Queen. Secondly, completely agree with Councillor White on the commemorations, all the parishes, all the street parties that took place over that wonderful weekend, you know, and the national stuff that was going on that we all watched on our TVs, and really celebrated the Queen's 70 years. And I think that, you know, that sort of long-standing commemoration of naming one of the committee rooms here for in honour of QE2 would be really good. Thank you.
Any more speakers on paragraph 9? Paragraph 10 is about the diary of cabinet meetings and forward plan. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 10? No. Agenda item number 7, reports of the chairs of the scrutiny committees. Members, the next item of business is the reports for the chairs of scrutiny committees, which this is agenda item 7, which is at pages 9 and 10 of your supplementary agenda. Written reports are attached for economic and place scrutiny, health, wellbeing and environment, and finance, assets and performance scrutiny committees. These reports are here for information and noting. Can the reports be received? Yeah, thank you. Agenda item 8, reports of the chairs of regulatory committees. Members, the next substantive item of business is the reports of the chairs of the regulatory committees. This is agenda item 8. The reports can be found at pages 11 to 13 of your supplementary agenda. Written reports are attached for the Audit and Standards Committee, Licensing and Public Protection Committee, and the Planning Committee. These reports are here for information and noting. Please can the reports be received? Thank you. Agenda item 9, questions to the Mayor, Cabinet members and committee chairs. The next agenda item is item 9, members' questions. I have received 3 questions for the leader and cabinet members. These have been tabled this evening. I will ask the member to read out their question, after which I will ask the leader or relevant cabinet member to respond. The member asking the question may then ask a supplementary question. Could I remind members that if they have a supplementary question, it must be a question and not a statement, and it must be concise, focused, and relate to the subject matter of the initial question and answer. The first question is from Councillor Andrew Parker regarding cutting of grass verges. Councillor Parker, your question, please.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. My question is to the Leader of the Council. Can the Leader will be aware that residents have been complaining about the poor standard of highway grass verge cutting across the borough by the County Council's contractor. The frequency and quality of the cuts this year have been abysmal. Is there anything the Borough Council can do about the situation?
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Tagg, your response, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I share the concerns, and as a county councillor, obviously more acutely because of the responsibility the county council have for that. And we picked up some issues really early on in the spring about the length of time it was taking to do even one division, and also the quality of the cut was really awful. That really multiplied itself into slower and slower grass cuts. And I don't think the contractor were even doing like a full week. They were doing a couple of days and then heading off somewhere else. I believe this contractor is also covering East Staffordshire and Moorlands, where they've had similar problems. You know, it was up to us as county councillors to really sort of put pressure on and really kick up a stink, I think, because abysmal is the word, Councillor Parker, and you know, with the help of Councillor Sweeney and other county councillors, we put pressure on for it to be resolved to a certain degree by getting the contractor back to do the cuts more quickly. The quality is still an issue as they go around. I believe that's because they don't have the correct equipment, which again is mind-boggling, saying that they've got a contract to do this. So I think going forward, we are going to get those cuts done this year. The teams are, I believe, on a sweep through the borough, and then we'll start immediately a sweep through the borough again, which will be the third of 6 cuts, which should begin to get it under control. So that's taken a bit of raising at the county council, and I think we've won the argument that there are issues there now that they need to address going forward on this contract. I think from the Borough Council's point of view, we have been in negotiation last year, and we will be again this year to take back the grass cutting, so that our borough teams can do it. I think they'll have the knowledge of the area, so there'll be no missed bits. They'll also have the correct equipment, which means there won't be the as though it's just been like hacked off or something in its basic form. And also I think we'll have more local pride in the work too. So that's what we're looking to do with the county council, and they're open to that, because there's a lot of red faces at the county council, so there should be, because of the way this has been bungled really in Newcastle and Moorlands and in East Staffs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Parker, do you have a supplementary question?
I do indeed, Madam Mayor, thank you. Personally, I'd like to thank the leader for all these actions that he's taken in helping to, excuse me, helping to resolve this major issue that we have for our residents. Does the leader agree with me that after the next cut, that the residents will start to see an improvement?
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Tagg, your response, please.
I think they will. I think the quality issue is still going to remain, because this company don't have the actual cutting rotor equipment for grass verges, I believe, so I'm told. But that frequency is going to increase, which will keep the grass under control, and then obviously an improvement from the abysmal performance we've had earlier in the year.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. The next question is from Councillor Joe Edgington-Plunkett regarding bus services. Councillor Edgington-Plunkett, your question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All wards across the borough have seen vital bus service reduced or removed. Local affordable public transport is vital for the economy, work, medical access, and also social isolation. Can the Borough Prosperity Fund explore subsidising money for local transport to get people of the borough moving again?
Thank you, Councillor Edgington-Plunkett. Councillor Tagg, your response, please.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you for the question. I think I've also read Labour leaflets during the election with commitments to local bus services. I think he's mentioned the Borough Prosperity Fund, which of course is called the Shared Prosperity Fund. And in there, one of the criteria is supporting decarbonisation, improving natural environment while growing the local economy. So we can certainly look at the bids coming forward for that, for some sort of transport angle, and I think bus services. But we're already doing some things which I'm not sure whether the council is aware of, but through the town deal for the borough for Newcastle, which we've got 23.5 million, there will be a new bus service going from Keele University through Nutton to Silverdale and into Newcastle, again not covering the ward which the council represents, but this will be a new bus service, 125, and what this will seek to be a green bus service. We're trying to look at hydrogen buses or some sort of electric buses for this to also meet that sort of carbon reduction agenda. So that's what we've achieved already through the town deal. The bid has gone to government for this. So we said we're going to get the money, but they want all the business cases all signed off. So that, I believe, has gone in as part of the town deal board, so we can start to deliver on that. But I would say one thing: buses services are, commercial services, and I know there's been a lot of issues, particularly in the Bradwell area, about the service run by D&G. And I can remember, years ago, the number 17, which was a First Bus service that went through Maybank when I was the councillor there, that was taken off by First Bus, and then D&G took it on again. And valiantly, they tried to keep it going, but it's just, it was not used enough. So commercially, bus services need to be used, or they're going to be lost unless they can be subsidised. And we know the situation with funding issues, that subsidies, wholesale of private companies for bus services can't take place. But what we can do is, through town deals and through levelling up money, is give some of that seed money for these routes come into use. And I think using Keele and the bus station as a loop and going out into the area such as Nutton and Silverdale, that gives that route sustainability, doesn't it? Because of the students and the people coming into town. So I think if we can replicate that out into the north of the borough and the east of the borough, we may then begin to get some critical mass of a bus service that people are using, which makes it commercially viable then for the users, for the operators to do. This is the first bus service that's going to be hopefully brought in on the new Keele University through to town via Keele, Nutton and Silverdale. So it could be any provider, I don't care who it is, as long as they do it and we were able to start it and we can keep it going and that people use it, which is a key to that. So I think we're on the same page here, and we'll use the fund as much as we can, and any other levelling up bids we do, to think of that green transport particularly level and get those green transport going, because as we said with the retrofitting of buses, we've done that on the route of the A53 corridor, but the other routes are still using some really dirty and unenvironmentally friendly buses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Edgington-Plunkett, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you. So really just in regards to the services that people are getting the buses, does this also include people that have got bus passes? Sorry, yeah, but the demand, sorry. So with the bus passes, is that also included?
Thank you, Councillor Edgington-Plunkett. Councillor Tagg, your response, please.
Thank you. Yes, I think what we get, the normal discretionary travel situation would be on any new routes that we bring in, because they'll be part of the network, won't they? So that will be the case. So that the answer to that is a yes. But I think what we need to do is use every opportunity, and also through planning applications, when we have planning applications, for example, Chatterley Valley, to ensure there are bus services and funding for bus services, and green travel plans are part of that. And I think if we build them in through our local plan, then we can get the resources to keep these bus services going.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. And the final question is from Councillor Mike Stubbs regarding the Prime Minister. Councillor Stubbs, your question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, he's still in place. On the 15th of June, Lord Geit was forced to quit as the Prime Minister's ethics advisor, the second to do so after Alex Allen quit in November 2020. On Monday just gone, Lord MacDonald was forced to write to the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, Catherine Stone, over Number 10's statements on MP Chris Pincher's to ensure confidence is not eroded in our local democratic process. Does the leader condone the behaviour of the Prime Minister, or does he think that the 7 principles of public life are to be ignored like the Prime Minister does? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Tagg, your response, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As all councils know, a process is underway regarding the MP in question, and I'm sure it's involving the police. No one can condone that behaviour, nor have I heard anybody that does, including the Prime Minister. Locally, I've ensured that our constitution contains the latest LGA code of conduct relating to standards and the 7 principles Councillor Stubbs mentioned. All of us signed up to that at our last meeting, and all of us will be judged by them, and the public can hold us to account on them. Nobody at the council will be ignoring them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Stubbs, do you have a supplementary question?
I certainly do, Madam Mayor. Following the leadership theme, Staffordshire Police has been told it must improve after being placed in special measures. And Staffordshire Fire have also just released figures that their second fire engine has seen its availability go from 95% last year to 17% this year. Would the leader of the council apportion the blame for the substandard performance at the door of the Conservative Staffordshire Commissioner Ben Adams, or maybe that of the former Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner Matthew Ellis? And can he guarantee to the residents of Newcastle that the fire service will not follow the police into special measures after the pending HMI report?
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs, although that question was a little offbeat. Councillor Tagg, your response, please.
Okay, certainly wasn't the second question I was expecting, but yeah, I think accepting. I mean, that's a body blow for the police, isn't it? And I know that it comes just as a lot, as we've discussed with, as Councillor Jill Heason discussed earlier on the question from Lillian Barker. There's a lot going on that's changing, and I know that Ben Adams and the new chief constable we've got as well. So I think there's a new team in place, and I've got confidence that they can deliver not only for the police, but also that important fire service, which of course is a now joint commissioner role. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Agenda item number 10, receipt of petitions. Members, agenda item number 10 is our next item to receive petitions from members. I have not been made aware of any to be handed in this evening. Agenda item 11 and 12. Members, agenda item 11 and 12 relate to urgent business and confidential business. I have no urgent or confidential business that needs to be considered this evening. That therefore concludes the business for this meeting, and I therefore declare the meeting closed. May I wish you a safe journey home and hope that everyone enjoys the rest of their evening. Thank you.
All right.